don't spend too much time overanalyzing a deal. The goal of this business is to get as many offers out there as possible. The more offers you put out, the better opportunity you're going to have to get a house under contract. We've done hundreds of deals, and we have less than 10 of them that have ever been a light remodel. And too many people think that $20,000 can do an entire house. It just can't.
Ben, thank you for joining me on our Thought Leader Spotlight series. I'm your host over here, Matt Camp, head of partnerships at DealMachine. And on these, we really like to shine a spotlight on industry experts like yourself, hear your inspiring stories, and really see how you see the real estate world evolving. So, Ben, really excited to have you on today. Again, it's Ben Allgeyer, based in Kansas City, a real estate investor with hundreds of flips, hundreds of wholesale deals under your belt. I know you started off pursuing a medical degree before transitioning into medical sales, and then found your passion in real estate, really leading you to leave the corporate world and join a home buying firm in KC. And then in 2019, you co-founded Crown City Homes, a company that's, again, flipped hundreds of houses, wholesaled hundreds of houses. So I know you've got that going on. I know you've got a security company, a residential painting business. So you're a busy guy. I really appreciate you taking time out with us, Ben.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. Can you tell us more? I mean, I mentioned like, hey, you started on the corporate side and even like the, medical degree. So, how did that turn into kind of this real estate journey yourself?
Good question. I was on the whole medical path, thought I was going to do that, thought it was what I wanted to do since I was like 8 years old. And then we got to the last semester of undergrad, which is a great time to change your entire life. And my dad put a piece of paper in front of me and said, okay, I'm going to write two numbers on here. The first number is 500,000. The second number is 35. So he said 500,000 is going to be the amount of debt that you're in on the low end if you pursue this path, and 35 is going to be the age that you're going to be by the time that you're ready to actually start your life. So do you want to continue to do this? And the answer was, I've never seen those numbers before. That sounds awful. No, I don't want to do this. There has to be other ways to help people and other ways to make money.
Wow. Yeah, man. And then so once you had that revelation, when did real estate become the solution? Like how did you find that journey?
Yeah. So I went down, just took a job as a corporate sales guy in a Fortune 500 company. And quickly realized that, I am not built for that life. I'm a terrible employee. Just couldn't deal with people telling me what to do. That was my whole life, but yeah, especially in corporate, I was like, it just isn't going to work. So I knew I had to find something else. So I lived at a coffee shop every single day after work. So I'd get done, go straight to the coffee shop, sit there till midnight, go back home, go to bed, wake up at 5 a.m., go to the gym, and then start my day over and do it all over again. And it was months and months and months of trying to figure out what I wanted to actually do. Mm-hmm. Went through my moving boxes and found Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I guess I had read it many, many years before. Picked that book up. There you go. Picked that book up and read it again, and it was off the races from there. I'm like, all right, I can do this. Let's do this. And then, we're here however many years later.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, we definitely Rich Dad. I mean, they'll bring us in as a recommended tool, even on like their webinars and teachings and stuff too, nice. Which is really cool to see that. But that's one of the most inspiring books for me, for David, our CEO, like probably half our customers. Like, very, very, very relatable there too. So, when you took the leap into real estate, where did you start? Like, can you tell us more about how you found that first deal and all that?
I actually paid for the Rich Dad coaching. So I went through the book and then paid for the coaching. Didn't get as much out of that as I thought I was going to. It was well beyond my wheelhouse at that point. I just didn't have the fundamental knowledge to understand that well enough. So I went and hired, I guess I went to a meetup down in Arizona where I was living at the time. And there was a speaker there, and she said she'd done all these deals and all kinds of different stuff. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go up to her and talk to her afterwards. Talk to her, and she goes, I'll tell you what, I was thinking about starting a mentoring type of program. You'll be my first student. So she taught me everything that she knew. And she was a creative finance guru. I guess that's what you can call it. But that was her specialty, was creative finance. So got into that world and never did a creative financing deal for a couple years, but figured out how to find distressed properties, and it was kind of off to the races from there.
Nice, man. And what did your first one look like? Like, was it in Kansas City or?
So the first one, I had got it. I got this guy that called in. He said he had a distressed property. It wasn't actually from driving for dollars. I had this thing done, had it under contract. I had a buyer on the back end and didn't know what I was doing. So the buyer on the back end, he's like, okay, based on everything that you've told me, I'll pay you this for it. Can you just send me over the photos? I forgot to take photos at the house.
Mm.
So I called the seller back up. I'm like, hey man, I got to come back out and take photos. He goes, you don't know what you're doing, do you? I go, yeah, I don't. Nope, this is my first one. He goes, yeah, I'm going to go with somebody else. And at that time, I didn't have any idea that what you could do with a contract. Like I just thought I'd drop the ball and lost that deal. So moved back to Kansas City, started working for a guy here who had a pretty big operation and he wanted to start direct to seller. So helped him build that. Quickly figured out, within about 11 months that I could probably do this on my own because I just did it for somebody else. So
Yeah, yeah.
just branched out and did it on my own.
Man, it's a heck of a first lesson too, though. So,
Oh, it was
yeah.
gut wrenching. 40 grand.
Going through that first deal that fell apart, like how did you recover from that? Do you have any lessons learned of that you took with you, that you approach things differently, or even just kind of like mentally, how did you get over that first your first time that it fell apart like that?
I mean, I think it just goes back to the pain of going and staying with that corporate job was so much worse than the pain of losing 40 grand. I'm like, all right, I already know how to do a deal, how to find a deal. Might as well just go find another one. I've already proven that I can find one. I just
Yeah.
forgot to take photos. So the thought of just going and doing that again versus going back to corporate and continuing to do that for an unknown period of time, like my father has done his entire life, God bless him. But I just don't know how people do it, to be completely honest with you.
One thing, Ben, I have noticed as well. I mean, I know you've done like hundreds of deals yourself at this point, built a company to do that. A serial entrepreneur in the way that you've started a few different businesses. I love the boot camp you've put together for people and how you kind of teach people just to very straightforward, like how to get to that first deal, how to get things rolling. Especially with wholesaling. Can you kind of walk us through that a little bit here? Some of those first steps. Like I know you talk about like how do you get set up with a business quickly? How do you start to generate leads? Like what is kind of that initial playbook you really dig in with people to go do that first deal?
Yeah, yeah. I'm taking what I learned when I first got started and kind of flipping it to what I didn't get out of that and what I wish I would have. So it really starts with the foundation of here's how to set up your business without having to spend a ton of money setting up your business. And then once we have that foundation in place, you're protected, you've got the legal stuff out of the way. Let's go find deals. And instead of doing what a lot of investors will do in the beginning and spend a ton of money on um, mailers or all kinds of lists or whatever it may be, like everything that I did when I got started, we start them off showing them how to find leads for free with niche lists of leads. So a lot of the time that's foreclosures, pre foreclosure, foreclosure. And then once they get that first deal, we implement some of those other things like bringing in the CRM, bringing in a virtual assistant who can help with pulling some of those leads, bringing in some other lead sources like things from DealMachine or a variety of different sources so that we can expand on that business, but not have to hamstring the business in the very beginning to get started and feel like you have to get a deal or you're going to be out tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, Ben, I love the philosophy of helping, especially newbies, get to that first deal as resourcefully as possible, as cost effectively as possible. One thing I've noticed you're great at helping kind of people think through and even coaching them through is really kind of the psychology of a seller when you're reaching out to them and giving them advice on their marketing, so that way sellers really respond to that outreach. So, do you have any advice there for, especially for the newbie, of how to really reach out to sellers in a way that they're going to respond and have a dialogue with you to start off with?
For sure. there's a lot of bad information out there about how to reach out to sellers, right? Number one, a lot of people in the industry will kind of keep stuff close to the chest. And I tend to be on the opposite realm of that, especially with getting into wholesaling or things along those lines. I tend to be more transparent, and I teach people to be more transparent. But the way that we get in front of people, and the way that we teach people to get in front of people, is by starting with education first. So we're out to do two things. One, serve homeowners, and two, educate homeowners. We're not there to buy their house in the beginning. And I teach everybody the 80-20 principle of what we show every single person in our organization, every single person that we teach through our boot camp. 80% of the conversation with a homeowner should be about them, their life, your common interest. 20% of it should be about the house. And too many people get that backwards, and they'll walk in and immediately go, okay, show me around the house. Forget about the house. The house doesn't matter. You're dealing with a person at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And if you can focus on the person and their needs and how you can serve them and educate them on the things that you know and how you can help them through the situation, you're going to put yourself in a way better position to buy more houses.
Yeah. Do you have, I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on how to serve that person, how to have that first conversation with them. So,
yeah.
Can you kind of break down, like, when you know, how do you discover those ways you can help them? Like, how do you educate them? And any advice there would be fantastic. Yeah.
So most of what we teach people in the beginning is around the foreclosure aspect of things. So we have built resource after resource after resource for people that are going through foreclosure. And one of our biggest ones is our foreclosure survival packet, our foreclosure survival guide. And it has all of these options for homeowners that walks them through, hey, if you want to do X, Y, or Z, here's how to do that. If you need help, give us a call. And a lot of our messaging is geared towards, I get it. There are a lot of people reaching out to you. You're going through a tough time, and we get it. There's a lot of people who are messaging you. At the end of the day, we have resources that we can provide that can kind of walk you through this on your own. If you get to a point where you need help, we're here to help. And we're not just looking to purchase your house. That may happen at the end of the day, but in the beginning, we need to figure out if we're even a good fit for you, if we're even a good fit to help you, because there's a bunch of options here. And if you have a way to save your house, we'll walk you down that path to help you figure out how to save your house. Mm-hmm. We found that doing it that way, yeah, we do. Sometimes we do some work for free that we don't get paid for. However, we buy a lot more houses than if we're doing it the opposite way, because we get so many more people to respond to our marketing.
Mm-hmm. And positively too. They're like, oh man, you're really helpful.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, absolutely.
So did you say, from a marketing standpoint, is it direct mail like that? Is it a call? Is it a door knock? Is it, like, how do you usually get in touch with them that first time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we do mostly text message and phone calls.
Okay.
We did the direct mail for a while, but we also have a lot of success with door knocking. Mm-hmm. So we have a fleet of people out that'll just go knock on doors, get in front of people and say, hey, listen, I know you're going through a rough time, and I know this is super out of the blue. I'm not here to pressure you or do any of that. If you have this figured out, that's awesome. But if you don't, I can help. So it's a very disarming way to approach somebody. Mm-hmm. And it's a hell of a lot easier to hang up a phone call. It's much more difficult to just close a door in front of somebody when they're standing face to face with you.
Yep.
So that's one of our philosophies. And that's one of the ways that we've had so much success in buying a bunch of houses and helping a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a fair number of people on the DealMachine front, take the door knocking if they can, be comfortable doing that. We have a route planning feature in there that helps give you GPS directions to do that. So it's definitely something that we've seen people have some success with, for sure. So,
and I love that feature, by the way. I have all of our door knockers, while they're out driving around, they have it on their phone, and they'll just drive and click on the houses as they're going.
That's awesome, man. I love it. I know you guys do a great job of deal analysis too. Like, when it comes to just running the numbers, do you have any advice there on how to quickly analyze a deal and be able to take action quickly in a confident way?
Yeah, I think the bigger point that we try to emphasize is, don't spend too much time over analyzing a deal. the goal of this business is to get as many offers out there as possible. The more offers you put out, the better opportunity you're going to have to get a house under contract. So, um, if you're going to flip the house, great. We have a full rehab sheet that we can go through line item by line item, but there are some heuristics that you can use to shortcut your way into determining what the property within 5 or 10% is going to be on the rehab side. So we break it down into 3 segments, and then it's based on square footage. So we have a light remodel that's typically just carpet and paint. We have a average remodel that's more fixtures, you got bathrooms, you have kitchen, and then we have a heavy remodel, which is obviously roof, maybe some windows, you got to do the HVAC, there's some foundation issues, and we have it broken down into columns, and then we have, or that would be rows, columns, and then rows that show the rehab dollar amounts based off of every project that we've done in all of our markets, and it shows us within 5% what that rehab is going to be based on the scope of the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Speed to offer, I think, is crucial. Like you said there. Is there anything else you've seen in terms of, when deals do end up falling apart? I mean, I know you say like make as many offers as you can. Are there any other kind of, common things you see of just common, mistakes that newer investors especially might make, when it comes to closing deals like that?
Yeah, most of the time it's over analyzing or overshooting the after repair value and undershooting the rehab.
Mm-hmm.
So on our little sheet that we have, we've done hundreds of deals and we have less than 10 of them that have ever been a light remodel. And too many people think that $20,000 can do an entire house. It just can't. It's
Yeah.
most of the time it's going to be $35,000 plus on a house. If it needs some of those major things, it's going to be a heavy remodel. And then on the ARV side, on the after repair value side, there's too many people that will overshoot that because they want to make the deal work.
Mm-hmm.
You don't make the numbers of the deal work. You figure out what the numbers are, and then you go and talk to the homeowner to get it within the range that makes sense to purchase. Don't be afraid to have that conversation and work harder on the negotiation to make the seller understand that, hey, listen, this is where it has to be. I can't go up off of that because then there's no room in it for me.
Yeah.
But too many people get properties under contract too high.
Yeah. I mean, that is a really good point. Like if you're working with a seller who, comes in and they're wanting retail and, they're throwing out a crazy high number to start off with, how do you have that conversation to really reframe it and have a more realistic picture for them to even get close to the numbers working?
Yeah, and that just goes into motivation. So if they want retail, they may not be motivated to sell the house right now. So you got to dig into what their motivation is, and that's a podcast that we could have for hours talking about motivation. But at the end of the day, it goes back to some of those principles that we talked about before of building that rapport. If you build rapport and you spend time talking to homeowners and you stick to that 80-20 rule, you're going to dig into their motivation and they're going to tell you eventually what the reason is behind their numbering, why they think their house is worth this much, and then they're going to get into why they even want to sell the house.
Love it, man. Man, this is so good. We'll have to have you back on, especially talking through that around seller motivation, identifying that, how to have that conversation. I know that's something that comes up often with our customers too. So, my last question, I wanted to make sure I asked this too. I know, you obviously, had a corporate career lined up, and kind of at the 11th hour there, it sounds like, oh, you made a switch, at least in the medical school side, and then, found your way into real estate eventually. And, through that whole journey, I mean, I think that is something that's really relatable for a lot of our customers. Do you, for people who are going through that right now, and maybe they have a 9 to 5, or they're, considering getting into that corporate, but know that, hey, they want something more. Do you have any other kind of words of wisdom or anything that you can tell them advice wise of just like, hey, here's how you can be thinking about this choice right now?
Yeah. It's something that I've kind of gone through the past couple months of realizing that at the end of the day, every single one of us is not going to be here in 100 years. Who cares? Just enjoy what you're doing and go and Like if you go and take a corporate job that you're going to work at for the next 50 years, is that going to be fulfilling for you? And then when you look back, you may be laying there going, oh, I really wish I wouldn't have done that and actually taken a risk. None of this matters. You may go into debt, you may lose some money, you may have a bad deal. We have stuff that happens like that all the time, but at the end of the day, I would rather figure those problems out for myself, and I would rather take on that stress, because what comes with that stress at the other end of it is the big wins that also come, and you get to know that you did that. And that's what keeps me moving forward. I mean, yeah, I've got a note on my desktop that says, I solve all problems that come to me today in a fun and easy way. We're all going to have problems that come to us, and I get to choose how to solve those problems. You get to choose how to solve your problems. And there's a lot of people that just aren't built to not be in the corporate world, and that's okay. Go be in the corporate world. You can make a difference in society in some other way. But for those of us that want to be on the entrepreneurial route, that maybe haven't broken out of those chains yet, I'm not a big believer in burning the boats. I'm a big believer in building something and then working your way out, just so that you have that fallback plan, because a lot of people put themselves in bad situations. But again, don't get hung up and don't get caught and don't get stuck in the monotony of the comfortability of a corporate job or an easier job. It's just not worth it at the end of the day for me, to be frank.
That's a freeing perspective, man. And knowing that you went for it, even when you go for it, doesn't work out. Like at least, you didn't give up, and then you really tried. You don't have regrets there, So
Yeah. And I'm sure there's still times when you and I both are going to go for it in the future when we don't know what's going to happen. And that's okay. Like, we've done it before. We know we can do it again.
Love it, man. Man, this was great, Ben. I, again, really appreciate you coming on. What's the best way for people to connect with you? And you put out great stuff on social, but we'll try to link to as much of this stuff below as we can.
Yeah, Instagram's where I'm most active. It's at the Ben Allgeyer, but that's where I'm most active. Facebook, not much there, and LinkedIn, not much there. So if you want to get in touch with me, I got Instagram, and then we also have a YouTube channel as well. So
yep, make sure to link to those below. And I think, do you guys have any other free resources? I think you mentioned a few free resources for people to like help out our community in terms of just getting started with real estate in general.
Yeah, if you want to message me on IG, I've got an entire negotiation guide. I have a bunch of getting started resources that'll like walk you through the first couple steps of setting up your business. So
Great.
I have all of those as well.
Perfect. We'll link to all that stuff as well, guys. And Ben, really appreciate you taking time out. And said, no, I know you're a busy guy, so very, very appreciative on our end as well for you, educating and inspiring our community too. So, yeah, to everyone watching, Matt Camp over here with DealMachine, and happy deal finding.